Hi, great intro, thank you, appreciate that. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Dave Kay and I'm CEO of Kiosk. We're a full-service insight and content agency, and today we're going to be talking about our collaboration with the team at L'Oreal, and essentially taking you through the story behind a very significant project that we conducted with them, and focusing in on the mobile aspect. And it's a project which we, together with L'Oreal, had the privilege and the honour to win the MRMW Award for Best Use of Qualitative earlier this year as well. So we really appreciate the opportunity to talk you through today as well. So to kick off, this is Marie. As you can see, Marie is, well, you probably can't see, but she's the global innovation lead on this project. And unfortunately, Marie has stood me up today. So that bodes well for a presentation at L'Oreal. But Marie does, unfortunately, can't make it because of unforeseen and regrettable circumstances. But she has suggested that I present her part of the presentation in a French accent, which I won't be doing. But having said that, VUCA could perhaps be perceived as a French term, but it isn't. And I imagine you've probably come across this before. VUCA is the acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that is taught at a lot of business schools. It actually comes from military thinking, and really, it's a way of describing our times, and I've certainly heard it on a number of different stages when people talk about living in the time of VUCA. Now, VUCA is basically reflecting a fairly, I would say, complex world for brands, and that's kind of the crux of it, and that's why we're talking about it. It's sort of the world of brands is changing, and the beauty, specifically in the beauty category, what this means is that beauty brands need to be more agile and more understanding of the greater sort of long tail of the brands that are out there. From the research perspective, what we're also seeing is, well, behavioral economics is telling us, don't believe what people say. And we're also getting challenged on lots of other things. So ultimately, the relationship with brands in this world is becoming much more complicated and much more volatile as people tend to sidestep sort of mainstream brands as well. Now, with increased uncertainty in situations, and I think VUCA probably, as a client, goes to just everyday sort of client realities and pressures, with that in mind, the sort of natural human reaction is to play it safe. And, you know, what we find is that often clients can become a little bit more risk adverse and take refuge in safe or more objective quant data. But with that, you have the problem of ultimately perhaps engaging and making that story really interesting and not suffering from data overload. So really, ultimately, the bigger picture here is kind of getting through all this in a time of VUCA and making a difference and not playing it safe, so to speak. So today we're going to be talking through, or I'm going to be talking through, the Beauty Strategies project. And this was a project that, together with L'Oreal and some other key partners that I'll mention in a moment, we embarked on a journey really to tackle these issues, these kind of problems with not getting headway with the research findings, not engaging and not really compelling people within an organisation to take notice of the insights that are coming through. Is a really ambitious project. It's huge, and it's been one that's actually been over the course of 2 years. So with multiple different areas and multiple different markets, and I'll talk you through that in a second. It's had an incredibly ambitious mobile ethnographic element to it, which is all about video and video content that's kind of at the very core of this study. And really, it's all about understanding people's real life behaviours. Just so you know who the other sort of team on this are, so as I said, I'm from Kiosk, and we looked after the mobile piece. We are actually a sister agency to the guys at Flamingo. Flamingo followed up on some of the mobile aspects, the observational piece, and actually did some more sort of focused interviews on the ground as well. And the guys at 24 True actually were the technology partner in this and helped create a video library. Now, what's interesting in this study, and actually you'll see I talk about the video library quite a lot, is that kind of technology and is becoming increasingly important just because there's so much great video content coming through. The ability to sort of tell the story and make that content compelling for the long run is incredibly important. And we find ourselves working not only with the guys at 24 True, but with the folks at Living Lens who are here, and other partners who essentially are in that space. And I think it's incredibly exciting for researchers, because you have a new tool. You have an exciting new tool, which means that you can make the most of video in a way that's previously simply not been possible. So, as I mentioned earlier, this project is all about real-life usage behaviours. And what we find is that in most sort of projects, when it comes to beauty research tends to focus in on understanding the kind of topical beauty routine, or the relationship that people have with specific categories, for example, anti-aging skincare. However, the way we've approached this is that this approach is the way that categories are currently segmented rather than challenging them. So what we were looking to do here was really challenge what was currently out there. And the beauty strategies approach focuses on how people really relate to beauty through various different body zones. So in year one, we looked at face. In year two, we looked at hair. And it really is all about the usage behaviours, the gestures that are kind of involved, the products, and the services used within and beyond the cosmetic industry. And the mobile ethno piece, alongside observational interviews, really enabled us to get the full picture. So not just the what, but also the how, the when, the where, the why, and along with key moments of truth and emerging trends as well. So what we have as a result of that is a relevant, real-life people behavioural segmentation. So that's what's come out of this, a segmentation which is real-life proof, ultimately. And this approach allows us to understand big and emerging innovation spaces, to rethink category and consumer segmentations, as well as how categories relate to one another, and provides increased awareness of new competition beyond the usual topical beauty categories. As you can probably tell, that would have all been said with a French accent if I had listened to Miri. Moving forward, just a quick note, this was a big project, and it continues to be a big project. It currently covered over 1,000 women, aged between 18 and 55, and across 9 different countries. And it's delivered 650 hours of real-life footage of beauty usage behaviours. So really enabling us for the first time to capture these kind of moments in context and compare them both across countries and cultures. Probably not the first time you hear it, especially this kind of venue, but video is more and more important, more important than ever before, and is at the very heart of our story. And that's why we were capturing video. The huge sort of majority of what we captured on this project was video content. We did have some options for capturing text and pictures, but really it was all about the video to capture those routines at home. It is no coincidence that the world's #1 search engine is actually YouTube. It is the most engaging way of connecting with people, getting them to share your content, getting them to essentially absorb it and to make it memorable. And it's instant, and it allows for people really to understand and live and breathe those segmentations when they're there. The output for this project was predominantly video. And yeah, after all, seeing is believing. There's no audio on this. There is audio, but there is no audio on this particular clip. I just wanted to give you a sort of sense of the content that was coming through. So don't forget, 650 hours of content. Now, edited films, which are scripted with a great narrative, are really powerful for engaging you, the client, in a room and in a debrief. And they do live on beyond a meeting better than a PowerPoint, I believe. However, they just tell a fraction of the story. What we've got here is 650 hours of real-life behaviours, which essentially the client needed to access and give their teams the opportunity to access. And so we made sure that this wasn't underused. And the way we did that was by leveraging the power of a video library, by getting together a really compelling and usable taxonomy where it comes to kind of capturing those moments as they happen. So it could be tied against, mascara in Japan, and different ages and series of different clips will come up. And the idea is that you engage people within your organisation, and obviously L'Oreal's a pretty big one, but within your organisation on a level where they have access to this and they're able to really make the most of the insights that come out of the projects. So at the moment, It's a fully searchable, collaborative video platform for internal use for the guys at L'Oreal, which allows for, essentially leveraging this project as best as possible, and it allows it to live on within the business. So, kind of people that are accessing it are the marketing guys, the R&D guys, the insight managers, and everyone's able to sort of deep dive and explore beauty and the behaviours when and where they need it. So it's like an ad hoc resource for them now. Okay. So you've seen some of the outputs, and I've talked through some of the bigger picture. I guess I'm kind of jumping back a little bit. When it came to sort of sitting in a room with our client and her sort of talking about the brief and the opportunity, she actually challenged us to do this. She challenged us to provide a masterpiece of mobile ethnography. It wasn't a static project. It was a project which constantly evolved, and I'll talk about client collaboration in a moment. But really, the key questions that we had to address were, how do we keep the process natural? How do we capture real moments? As I say, reality was at the heart of all this. How do we make it simple? How do we make it engaging as well for the long run? And how do we provide the highest quality outputs? I think that, of those three questions, is probably the one that feels the most relevant and resonant at the moment. Long gone is the time of rubbishy video footage that comes from a mobile. The quality of the phones, the quality of the lighting that you can sort of help to create the moment in the first instance is moved way beyond what we had previously. You shouldn't have to compromise on the quality of the footage you get via mobile. So in terms of how do we keep it real, we try to, and I think everybody in this room is arguably a fan of mobile. I'd imagine that there's not going to be much in the way of argument around the fact that it is the most sort of easy and intimate way to access someone's lives. And actually, for this project, we actually had in each market people using handsets, which we chose based on various different criteria, including memory on them. There's lots of footage, especially when you talk to women in Brazil about their hair techniques and ask them to capture their hair moments every day. It's a huge amount of content which is shared with us. They were also given a mirror which is on the actual handset itself to capture the moments most naturally when you're out of home. So you are able to sort of use it in the house and our house and capture every single moment when a beauty routine is happening. And we also provided, in the case of this project, brackets and other equipment to help set up the best environment for capturing the film. How do we make it engaging? Well, at the very heart of what we do at Kiosk is our community management. And what we do is essentially try and keep people very much in the mix of all the technology that's flying around. We use a huge amount of technology, but at the same time, we have people at the very heart of it. And we use those community management skills to keep this a relevant and engaging process. So this involved multiple stages, and again was key to the project. So to begin with, each individual person received a briefing call in their own language from our team, who are based in London or in New York. Majority of this went out of London. And they were briefed on the larger, broader objectives of the study. So they were, as much as possible, a participant with full awareness of what was being asked of them. And they were also given a good amount of as you've seen, support videos and documents that were used alongside the briefing to kind of bring to life what was needed. Beyond that, every single video that you saw in that previous clip would have been essentially filtered, seen and responded to by one of our community management team. So they were getting bespoke individual feedback on each video. They were being encouraged, they were being basically sometimes asked to redo it if the quality was not good enough, and they were also being given a very personal experience from start to finish, and that's hugely important to access those real moments and for them to feel comfortable. With that in mind, the sort of very close-up, and as I mentioned, the quality piece, the very close-up community management also means that you can influence the quality of the content that's coming through by giving tips on lighting, by giving tips on audio, turn the kettle off, ladies. We can't, if the spoken piece is important, you want to hear them properly. You want to make sure the lighting is as good as possible. And if your market in India was particularly a challenge, and it just meant a lot of fundamentally a lot of thinking around how best to get the situation that we're working with. So part of that was addressed on the briefing call. Part of that is addressed as feedback, which they receive through our mobile app. So they kind of get messaged as this process goes on. To further improve that, on some of the projects that we're now running, which have got essentially a real focus on the quality of the content, we're actually employing a director of photography to come in and tell us, up front about how do we maximize these situations? How do we maximize natural light in this market? What does it all kind of look like? What can we get to make sure that we're not compromising the quality of this output? Because it is good. Grainy and badly framed just isn't good enough anymore because the technology is there and we just need to make sure that we make the most of it when it comes through. Client collaboration. So we have a very close working relationship with the team, and in that time I've only been stood up once, and apart from that we've basically been at events with them, workshops really, where we've kind of gone in and looked at the content. We've adapted things on the go, so there wasn't a rigid structure here around how it works. We took learnings, we went back to markets, we staggered the field work, we were agile in terms of the timelines. Brazil typically takes a little bit longer than other markets. We bore that in mind. All the cultural aspects were kind of coming to the fore. All our team that worked on this were speaking the language of the community members. They were speaking the language of the local client as well. And it made a huge difference. Having that sort of dialogue at regular intervals was hugely important in improving the quality of the outputs as we went. So, I mean, there's no real big point beyond this. The fact that we had these engagements, we learned from it, and we kept the processes as agile as possible. In addition to that, the video library element means that clients have easier access to the raw materials, the content. They're able to look at it and make notes on it and share back, which also makes a difference in keeping engagement levels high. So, in terms of the results of all this, and again, I'm not going to do it, but imagine I'm reading this in a French accent, because I think it's probably more compelling. The project itself has had a huge exposure and implications in driving change within L'Oréal, with learnings shared up to executive committee level and across the heads of different R&D and business units. It has provoked strategic questions and offered inspiring answers regarding the evolution of current category and segmentations. It has fueled innovations from global innovation strategy to product and service innovation, with 20 big ideas currently being pushed through. It's been a great source of insights to optimize product testing protocol. And I think really importantly, it's the legacy of the video bank, which will deliver huge return on investment. I mean, it's an expensive project. You can tell from the scale of it. It meant we hit our target for the year, which was nice from an agency perspective. But it also, from the client perspective, meant that it was something that actually in the long term was going to give a lot of return on investment, and that made it a smart move. It was very sort of forward-thinking in that respect. So it also, in terms of that return on investment, it also allows kind of ad hoc access, on-demand access to insights, and it also spreads the culture of insight within the business itself, which is really powerful.